Here's your Forbes Daily Briefing for Wednesday, January 17th. Today on Forbes, the car dealership Billionaire no one knows. On a sultry November afternoon in West Palm Beach, Florida, Terry Taylor picks up the phone in his waterfront office. In a grizzled southern drawl, he says, quote, "I know you've contacted basically everybody I know, so I figure it's time you hear from me." After weeks of trying to reach Taylor, the elusive billionaire behind one of the largest car dealership groups in the US, or anyone that knows anything about him, word has finally made it back to the man himself. Taylor, who admits his attempts at secrecy are by design, says, quote, "I'll agree to answer a few questions." The 72-year-old has never sat for an interview. In fact, he rarely sits for anything, skipping out on most meetings even with his own associates, and only agreeing to show up at conventions or conferences on the condition that he's not introduced to anyone. One source told Forbes, quote, "He's like Batman. You hear about him and you admire his work, but nobody has really ever seen him in real life." For 4 decades, Taylor has quietly built a sprawling empire in the shadows, though there are more than a few signs of him if you know where to look. After receiving a tip from a longtime source, Forbes began digging into Taylor and his company, Automotive Management Services, looking through dozens of Florida business records and speaking to 8 people who know of him, including analysts, rival car dealers, and business partners. All told, Forbes estimates Taylor's net worth to be $1.9 billion. Most of it is tied up in his estimated 75% stake in Automotive Management Services, which owns more than 120 dealerships across America and is worth some $1.6 billion by Forbes' count. But, like Batman's alter ego Bruce Wayne, Taylor also has a penchant for the good life. He spent at least $180 million on lavish homes, including $30 million for Tommy Hilfiger's New York City penthouse in 2019. He also has a $45 million private jet with his initials, TT, on the tail. It's been roughly half a century since Taylor first got into selling cars. His father, Warren Taylor, opened a used Ford lot in Daytona Beach after returning from a 4-year stint in the Marine Corps. Terry worked around the dealership in his teens, and Florida business records show he was made vice president by 1975, when he was just 23 years old. Not long after, his father decided to sell. Taylor says, quote, "It wasn't like a family business. I wasn't handed anything." Using money scraped together from working for his dad, Taylor went into the business for himself, buying his first new car dealership, selling Fords, in Daytona Beach in 1982. It didn't take long before Taylor was buying other dealerships in North Florida, this time selling new models of Fords and Toyotas. It can be relatively easy to parlay one dealership into many, according to Ray Sicolo, who owns 13 dealerships in the New England area, so long as you earn the trust of the right people. He says, quote, "Once the brand manufacturer has a little more confidence in you, and the bank sees that you've demonstrated you can run a successful dealership, they're a little more flexible with financial terms. It's a bit of a domino effect once you have a few dealerships under your belt." When Taylor began expanding outside of Florida in the mid to late 1980s, he realized he couldn't manage all the locations by himself. So he started partnering with his general managers to make sure his far-reaching auto empire remained well-run. As Taylor continued to buy up dealerships during the 90s, he often retained the sitting general manager of a newly acquired dealership, offering him or her equity to continue to manage the business on the ground, while Taylor kept majority ownership. There are now approximately 100 general managers across Taylor's network who each have stakes of roughly 25%, this according to Taylor himself. By the 2000s, Taylor had started to move upscale, with luxury car brands like Mercedes, Lexus, and Porsche occupying a growing portion of his empire and his bottom line. High-end dealerships often generate revenues twice as high as their consumer brand counterparts, according to auto industry analysts. For full coverage, check out Devin Sean Martin's piece on Forbes.com. This is Kieran Meadows from Forbes. Thanks for tuning in.